Welcome back in. Today we're going to be discussing some of my favorite late round players you should be looking to target. Yes, there's no such thing as a sleeper anymore. We have so much content out there. I don't really think we should be naming these players sleepers because nobody's really sleeping on these players. I think it's a much better name is to use undervalued. Anyways, off my soapbox. Let's go ahead and get into it. Talk about some of these players that we're looking to target. And let's start things off with Brian Robinson, which is a little bit surprising for me because I've never been really a big Brian Robinson guy, but it's hard to deny what he did last year. He was pretty solid, especially with only a 60% opportunity share, 8% target share last year, played in 15 games. He had 733 rushing yards, 367 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns last year, which was good for 13.2 fantasy points per game, which was 22nd among all running backs. But on a per touch basis, Brian Robinson was pretty good. 7th in yards created per touch, 20th in evaded tackles, and 24th in breakaway run rate. So he was also good as a pass catcher as well, 5th in yards per route run, 1st in yards per reception. So there's a lot to like here with Brian Robinson. I get it. They signed Austin Eckler, but Austin Eckler is nearing 30. Austin Eckler himself even mentioned that he is not a running back that is even looking, a big workload, that he would much rather have a smaller workload so he can stay fresh. And I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. I think Brian Robinson can command 50, 60% opportunity share, just like he did last year, and still getting goal line work and stuff like that. So Brian Robinson, I think, is in a really good spot this year. He is RB34, 105th overall. You're not investing a lot, kind of your RB3, RB4, depending on how you build your roster. And somebody that doesn't have a high ceiling, but I think has a pretty safe floor, somebody you can buy as a flex option on a week to week. I think he has like a low end RB2, high end RB3 upside. So let's keep it moving here. Let's move over to Tai Chandler. He is currently coming off the board at RB44, 138th overall. Now, the Vikings did sign Aaron Jones over the offseason, but I still think he's going to see Tai Chandler see a pretty sizable role in this offense. Last year, he flashed that ability to be a contributor even on limited opportunities. He finished 18th in yards per touch, 19th in yards created per touch last year. Now, Aaron Jones does have a pretty lengthy injury history, has suffered quite a bit of soft tissue injuries. I don't think Aaron Jones is going to be a player who's going to see a large workload. It's never been him in his entire career. So that opens the door for Tai Chandler to be able to see, 40, 45% opportunity share here within this offense. And while this offense, I think the jury is still out how good this offense is going to be this year with Kirk Cousins leaving. But we saw late last year, with a lot of different quarterbacks really still be able to play really well in this scheme for Kevin O'Connell. So Tai Chandler, I really like here. Aaron Jones is being drafted at RB18, while Tai Chandler is being drafted at RB47. And I think they're going to have a pretty similar workload here with this offense. So I'll just take the savings and I'll take Tai Chandler. Let's keep it moving here. Let's talk about another running back. This is a rookie, my first rookie running back on this list, and that is Marshon Lloyd, RB45, 145th overall, 5'9, 220 pounds. Now, if you're not really familiar with him, really tested well at the combine. He has a 93rd percentile speed score. Not a big time contributor at USC. Last year, he had 116 carries, 820 rushing yards, and 9 touchdowns. He also had 13 receptions for 232 receiving yards, but he was really good on a per touch basis. 26th in yards after contact per attempt, 4th in missed tackles forced per attempt, 23rd with 18 carries and 15 plus yards last season. Now, one thing we know, and I know a lot of people are going to look at, well, they got Josh Jacobs. Why would I even want to mess with Marshon Lloyd? Josh Jacobs is going to be the workhorse. I don't think so. Matt LaFleur has never been a guy who's really committed to one running back to have a true workhorse. He's always ran a committee. And I get it. You may say, well, they had Aaron Jones. That's what they, Aaron, did you just say that's what Aaron Jones has always been? Correct. But even once you look at Matt LaFleur as the offensive coordinator when he was with Tennessee Titans, if you look at him, Deion Lewis had over 150 carries when they had Derrick Henry. I mean, those were the days when you had the thunder and lightning combination between those two. And so I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to get the amount of touches that people think that he's going to. And I think Marshon Lloyd is going to get quite a bit of it. He drew a lot of buzz in minicamp. Regardless of that, Marshon Lloyd, I just think is a really fun player and somebody that I think is going to have value. He's going to see touches. I think 8 to 12 touches per game is not out of the range of possibility for Marshon Lloyd. So at RB45, another player that I would be looking to draft. Let's keep it moving. Roshan Johnson's next up. RB56, 174th overall. I get it. It's a little bit of a crowded situation because they signed DeAndre Swift, but I don't think DeAndre Swift is a great runner of the football. I think he's a great pass catching running back, but I don't think he's good with the ball in his hands as a runner. We saw it last year. And then we were talking about being behind one of the best offensive lines in the league, and he still was pretty inefficient as a runner. Now you flip that with Roshan Johnson, who was actually pretty effective as on the ground. 24th in yards created per touch, 28th in yards per route run as a pass catcher. Towards the end of the year, we started to see Roshan Johnson start to come on a little bit, scored double-digit PPR points in 3 of his final 5 games as well. And I think there's a really a decent shot here that Roshan can end up being the 1B in this offense. And I think he can also secure the goal line work because DeAndre Swift, like I said, was not particularly efficient last year. He was 51st in true yards per carry, and he only averaged 2.8 yards per carry against stacked fronts. And you compare that to Roshan Johnson, who averaged 4.1 yards per carry against stacked fronts. So much more effective, much more efficient on the ground. Roshan Johnson is, which is not surprising considering his size. But and I know Khalil Herbert is there, but there's been some rumblings that maybe they end up moving on from him. Maybe they look to trade him to a team that could use a running back. Maybe an injury happens, or like a team like the Dallas Cowboys who have a kind of a muddy like a muddy backfield. Nobody really stands out. Maybe he gets moved there. But Roshan Johnson, I do think, can be a solid contributor this year for the Chicago Bears and an offense that is really ascending. So Roshan Johnson is somebody that I'm definitely buying in. RB 56, 174th overall. Let's move on to my last guy, another running back here. Now, some people may not be familiar with this name, but this is Tyron Tracy, RB 57, 188th overall. I've kind of mentioned him, in passing, in some other videos I've done, but he is somebody that I definitely want to focus on here. 5'11, 210 pounds, a 77th percentile speed score, 93rd percentile burst score, and he was gaining a lot of buzz in minicamp. Now, this is a former converted wide receiver who converted a running back last year, and he actually played pretty damn well for this being his first year as a running back. Per PFF, among running backs with 50 plus carries last year, Tracy ranked first in yards after contact per attempt, third in elusive rating, and with a 6.3 yards per attempt. So this is a running back that actually played really well. We know he can command pass catching work as he was a converted wide receiver. Now, they did bring in Devin Singletary this offseason. Devin Singletary's always been just kind of a guy. I think he's good enough to get the job done, but he's not somebody that's like, he's not this elite, running back talent. I just think he's always just kind of been a guy. Yeah, he was really good last year with the Texans. But there's a big difference between the Texans offense and what this Giants offense is. And so, really, all they have is Malik Neighbors in terms of offensive weapons. Yeah, Jalen Hyatt, who's a deep threat there, Darius Slayton, and guys like that. But it's really Malik Neighbors, and that's kind of it here in terms of their overall weaponry. And so I think Tyron Tracy could actually carve himself out a pretty strong role, especially in PPR formats, as a pass catcher here and get some third down work. Because he also actually fared really well as a pass blocker as well. So that could also help Tyron Tracy, who Devin Singletary has never really been great at that aspect of his game. So Tyron Tracy is definitely a name to keep in mind. Definitely a name to monitor because I definitely think he could be somebody in late rounds and PPR formats that could really have a pretty strong role here. Let's switch over to the wide receiver position. Khalil Shakir, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on him. I've already talked about him a lot, but I really want to bring him up again because he really fits the bill here. Wide receiver 54, 120th overall. I mean, we know Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis is gone. That equates to 41% of the total team targets are gone. That's 160 for Stephon Diggs, 81 targets for Gabriel Davis last year that are gone. Yes, they drafted Keon Coleman in the second round. They also signed Curtis Samuel, but neither one of those wide receivers really scare me all that much to command a strong target share right out the gate. I do think Curtis Samuel's get involved. Been within this offensive scheme before. I think Khalil Shakir could be the guy who really breaks out here. Started to show a really strong rapport last year with Josh Allen, 611 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. He was very good, 33rd in yards per out run, 14th in yards per reception, 19th in target separation last year, and second in fantasy points per target. He was also very good with the ball in his hands, fourth in yards after the catch per reception as well. And so I think he's going to be a player they're going to try to get him on some short crossers and stuff like that over the middle work and really try to get him involved a lot more than they did last year. So I think Khalil Shakir could be, really to be the leading target getter among this wide receiver group, where I think Dalton Kincaid probably still has the lead as probably being the overall target earner. But Khalil Shakir, I think, is right behind him. Really like Khalil Shakir at cost. Wide receiver 54, 120th overall. I mean, Keon Coleman is going ahead of him, and I think that is incorrect. I do not like that one bit. Khalil Shakir, I think, has proven each of the last years has gotten better, and I think he could really take off this year. Let's keep it moving. Let's move over to Rasheed Shaheed, wide receiver 57, 133rd overall. Speaking of players that have improved each of the last 2 years they've been in the league, and that is Rasheed Shaheed. Last year with a 14% target share, 46 catches, 719 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. He also averaged 10.4 fantasy points per game, which is kind of wild to me that he's wide receiver 57. I mean, he was productive last year, 5 games of top 24 production. He had 3 top 12 weeks as well. Now I get it. He's a little bit more boom or bust, but we do have Michael Thomas, who is now gone, who had 64 targets through 10 games last year. So he is gone. And now they bring in a big upgrade at the offensive coordinator position and Clint Kubiak, because last year this offense was so bland. It was so boring. They were last in the league in play action. I definitely think that is something they need to get back to and really ramp up, which could help somebody like Rasheed Shaheed, who is a tremendous deep threat, but I also think they can start to get him the ball in his hands in short and intermediate routes as well. So I think Rasheed Shaheed could be the biggest beneficiary of somebody like Michael Thomas being gone, because past that, you're talking about guys like A.T. Perry, Bub Means, that are all completely different wide receivers, something like Rasheed Shaheed. So at the very least, I think he could be a very solid flex option that you plug in once bye weeks start that could really help you out. So Rasheed Shaheed is definitely somebody that is on my radar. Everybody's really hyped about Jameson Williams this year. I think Rasheed Shaheed should be getting, if not the same, more buzz than Jameson Williams is. So let's keep it moving. Let's so we can wrap this thing up. Germaine Burton from the Cincinnati Bengals, rookie wide receiver 75, 185th overall. Yeah, he was a third round pick for the Bengals, and I really get this ADP because we're talking about a wide receiver, number three wide receiver on one of the most pass heavy offenses in the league. I get it. Jamar Chase is going to be the alpha, and then T Higgins should be back healthy, especially should be more motivated this year, especially if he can stay healthy because it's really a big contract year for him. He's playing on the franchise tag, but still, Jermaine Burton, I still think could have standalone role here. 6 foot, 196-pound receiver with a 91st percentile burst score. I think he steps right in as the number three wide receiver in a pass heavy offense. Tyler Boyd is gone. The Bengals used 11 personnel on 74% of their plays last year, which is the fourth highest rate in the league in 2023. So I definitely think he could be a player who sees 5, 6, 7 targets a game. And that is something that we should be looking for, especially at wide receiver 75, 185th overall. I think Jermaine Burton, had he, didn't have the character concern issues that some people were talking about with him, very well could have been a first round pick. Like, he has that type of tools here, at wide receiver. It's just, can he put it all together? Can he figure it out? Hopefully, in an ecosystem with Joe, with players like with Jamar Chase and guys like Joe Burrow can kind of get him right. Because if he can, Jermaine Burton could actually be a big time home run, especially if you're like in a keeper league and you draft Jermaine Burton and next year T. Higgins leaves and now he's the number two wide receiver on this offense and he really takes off this year. Jermaine Burton can really cash checks after this year. So Jermaine Burton is another player I really like getting my hands on as a late round option, especially wide receiver 75, 185th overall. I definitely think his ADP is going to change. I think he'll start to rise a little bit with training camp. We start to get a lot of buzz around some of these rookies and some of these other players that we're looking at. So be sure to keep it locked in here. We got a lot more content coming. Hope everybody has a great 4th of July. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.